Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg News. Yesterday, when you met with Premier Lee, one of the things you said in the public remarks was this partnership, Canada and China, this new partnership sets us up well for the new world order. What did you mean by that? What is the new world order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing, plurilateral deals, if I can use that term, Trans-Pacific Partnership, potential linkages between Trans-Pacific Partnership and the EU? Where is financial regulation, payment system regulation going to fit into that? All of these aspects, I'm use a fancy word, like the architecture, the multilateral system that has been developing these is being eroded, to use a polite term, undercut, use another term. So the question is, what gets built in that place? How much of a patchwork is it? How much is it just on a bilateral basis? Or where do like-minded countries in certain areas? So like-minded countries, just to be clear, doesn't mean you agree on everything. Aspects, for example, on digital trade or agricultural trade, climate finance as another area, to move into areas of geostrategy, geosecurity. You will have different coalitions that are formed. So what this partnership does is in areas, for example, of clean energy, conventional energy, agriculture, as we were just talking about, and financial services, which we've talked less about, but the evolution of the global financial system, the role of the renminbi over time, the evolution of cross-border payments. I know it all sounds very dry, except for your organization, which I think takes an interest in it. These are important elements of how the system's going to work. And look, the expectation is that rather than these being developed necessarily through the IMF, WTO, and other multilateral organizations, it is going to be coalitions that develop them, not for the world, but for subsects.
For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13 to 17. Shabbat Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach Kodash. Double honor to our venerable apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. All right, so Brother Haran coming back at you with a quick lesson, Lord willing to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right, we have an article here titled, United Nations Chief Warns New World Order is Dying. Okay, and it's very interesting that being at the times that we're in, okay, we always go into end time prophecies. All right, these elites are eventually they're starting to feel the heat, all right, of prophecy, because they're noticing that it's not working in their favor. All right, so it's pretty much a race against time, and that's why you're seeing a lot of the things that's going on the geopolitical frame. That's all leading into end time biblical prophecy of America's destruction. Okay, so having the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, all right, basically issuing what they call a stark and chilling warning, all right, that the New World Order is on life support is a beautiful thing. Okay, now you have Trump pretty much saying the same thing. All right, I believe he's referring to that when he goes to the WEF meetings, all right, to let them know that, the New World Order is not looking too good right now. All right, and then I believe it was yesterday or today you had was he the Prime Minister of Canada? Is it Mark Carney? I think that's his name, or Carney, I think, right? And he said that China must lead the New World Order. Okay, so it's kind of like you have one side saying, "Oh, it's on life support." You have another side saying, "Oh, one country must lead it." You know what I mean? So regardless, all right, we are in the time of Job, the 20th chapter. Okay, going into when he's about to fill his belly. All right, because all this technological advancements that they're seeing, that you're seeing around the world that's happening, okay, it's making them salivate at the possibilities of rulership. All right, the possibilities are endless when it comes to total control and rulership, man. Okay, they've been able to indoctrinate the minds of the people and kept them docile enough for them to take over without any type of real opposition. Okay, because the people that would actually stand up to fight against this type of building up of a tyrannical techno oligarch, all right, those people have been bought and paid for. Right, we're talking about your Supreme Court judges. You're talking about your political pundits, like your 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 shit, your presidents, right? In this case, the highest office of the land, the president. Okay, you have your senators, okay, your congressmen, and so on and so forth. All right, they've all been bought out. Okay, and then of course you look at the military. All right, because remember, in order for any population to stand up and fight against this type of tyrannical, oppressive government, this known as this totalitarian government that you're seeing being built in front of your eyes, right? With the consolidation of all these corporations coming together, all right, something known as a state monopoly, so to speak, right? They're able to control every aspect of important power in society: your printing press, your music, your politics, your education, whatever. Okay, so they've done a great job. Now, in order for the people to actually stand up and fight against this and actually be successful, you need at least 50 to 75% of the military to be on the side of the people. But guess what? Right now, as it stands, that military is or has pledged allegiance to, all right, these so-called overlords. Okay, because they gain all the contracts, the military contracts, the defense contracts. All right, it's all going to the hands of these technocrats. Okay, when you have Palantir, when you have Oracle, all right, companies like that, all right, that have this kind of power with the federal government, this affinity with the federal government, all right, and when you look at the Pentagon, the DARPA, DARPA with Boston Dynamics and so on and so forth, the military is their playground. You see what I'm saying? They do all these tests with the military because all they know is war. Okay, and they're preparing for the biggest showdown in human history, which is war against the Heavenly Father's saints and war against Yahweh Shai when he comes back. Okay, so that's the state that we're in right now, and they see the prophecies unfolding, so now they're all shaken. Okay, so they're gonna escalate things, they're gonna speed things up. All right, pertains to Revelation 12 and 12, man. Okay, so this thing is not going to slow down. It's only going to pick up, and it's going to intensify as the days and the weeks go by. All right, so let's read this. It says, "In what many are calling his most dramatic farewell address," meaning he's leaving, right? So that means whoever is going to be stepping in to take his place is going to be worse than him. All right, they're really about to take this thing to a whole different level. But anyway, it says, "In what many are calling his most dramatic farewell address, Gutierrez delivered the grim prognosis just months before he steps down as UN chief in 2026, admitting that the era of unchecked globalism is rapidly collapsing. The Secretary General declared that the foundations of international cooperation, once the proud pillars of the post-war order, are crumbling before our eyes as more and more countries openly reject the authority of globalist institutions like the UN itself." Gutierrez made the explosive remarks Thursday during what is expected to be his final annual priorities speech to the world, a moment that will likely be remembered as the day the head of the UN officially conceded the death of the old globalist order. It says ZeroEdge.com reports, "At a time when we need international cooperation the most, we seem to be the least inclined to use it and invest in it," he said, decrying some governments are actively working to weaken the system, increasingly creating self-defeating geopolitical divides. And this is exactly what our Lord mentioned when you go into the book of Matthew. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Let's see. Right, it's the book of Matthew, chapter. Let me see here. Matthew chapter 12, verse 25, it says, And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. Okay, because what happens is when you have a kingdom that's divided, right, you're going to have infightings, you're going to have civil wars, you're going to have, in this case, world wars. Okay, and when you have that kind of conflict, that division ultimately becomes a collision, a clash. And when you have that, you have the desolation. Now, when you go into that word desolation, all right, it says eremo, which says to lay waste, okay, to come to naught. All right. It says, let's see, waste, all right, desert, wilderness. Isn't that what America is going to be turned into after the Third World War is completed? All right, after Yahushua comes back with his angels to lay this land desolate, isn't that what's going to be the remains of America? A wilderness, okay, a desert area. It's going to be solitary. It's going to be desolate, man. Okay, as it says in Isaiah 13, right, the Lord is going to make the land desolate, man. Okay, with his indignation, that fire. All right, so if you have two kingdoms or multiple kingdoms, in this case, going at it, the only thing that's going to happen is what is going to be brought to desolation. Okay, it says, "And every city or house divided against itself shall not stand." Why? Because when you have an infighting, when you have fights, you have a division, you have a split. When you have a split, it weakens everything. Okay, there's chaos. All right. Verse 26, Matthew 12 and 26, it says, "And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then, or how shall then his kingdom stand?" Okay, you have a division, it makes you weaker. So that's what Gutierrez is referring to. All right, in the sense of the old world order is decaying because you have a bunch of countries going at it. All right, all these countries are preparing for World War III, and it's not a concept of we're just all setting up some type of alliance, all right, a global world alliance to fight against a different form of enemy. You know what I'm saying? They all kind of like the Lord has it where they're all divided. They're all split. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. When you talk about military, you're not going to have America and Russia doing joint military drills. Who they're going to be going up against? Themselves? They joint drill. They do the military joint drills against for each other, against each other? No. Right? So you're seeing military buildup in Russia, and their sights are set on America. Just like America is setting up her military might, and their eyes and sights are set on Russia, right? And China, and so on and so forth. Okay? But at one point, all these different countries played a role in this so-called global order. Okay? So when you have two superpowers coming against each other, a kingdom divided, because ultimately this is Esau's kingdom. When you have Russia and you have US going against each other, those are two Edomite nations going against each other. What do you think is going to happen? Hence, you have the MAD theory, mutually assured destruction, man. Okay, desolation. All right. So it says the context is chaos. Gutierrez told delegates, "We are a world brimming with conflict," right? That's a division. Okay, impunity, inequality, and unpredictability. All right. So who's behind all these things? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, because he's creating this atmosphere. He's stirring up the spirits to create that instability. Right? Esau talks about something known as divide and conquer. But who is the ultimate war tactician? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Hence Exodus 15 and 3. All right. The Lord is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Okay. So it says, another big dramatic line as he discussed hot conflicts from Ukraine to Gaza to Yemen to Sudan came in the following. So you got you got conflicts everywhere. Conflict simply means war. Everywhere, man. Ukraine, Gaza, Yemen, Sudan. And people are dying. All right. People are dying by the thousands, if not the millions already at this point. Okay. Quote, "That is the paradox of our era. At a time when we need international cooperation the most, we seem to be the least inclined to use it and invest in it," he said, adding, "Some seek to put international cooperation on death watch. I can assure you we will not give up," end quote. Is that Obadiah Malachi, right? We shall return and build up the desolate places. But what did the Lord say? He said, yeah, you go and build, but I will throw down. Okay? You go and build, but I will throw down. So this asshole here talking about he's not going to give up. Like he has a choice, right? Like they have a choice. That's why it tells you in the book of Second Ezra that though they were afraid, yet durst fight, because the Lord puts that spirit on them, that pride on them to think that, they're going to be able to stand a chance against Yahushua when he comes back to uproot them out of this land, man. Uproot their kingdom from existence. Okay? That stone that hit the feet, all right, of that statue in the book of Daniel, okay, in the book of Nezra's dream. Okay? So it says, quote, peace is more than the absence of war. He additionally said, blaming that poverty, lack of development, inequality, and weak institutions end up creating conditions for further violence. Sustainable peace requires sustainable development. That's the pitch. That's the pitch. In other words, socialism across the board, right? Trump is pushing that right now. I believe he just said they signed a $50 billion medical aid for rural areas. That's socialism, bro. That's getting ready for the UBI. All right. Everything being equal. Once the government starts funding things like that, they want to even things out. They want to make everyone come down to the same level playing field, man. Okay. Why? Because they purposely set up the world to be so difficult, right? When it comes to working, when it comes to life in general, life is just so difficult that people end up giving up. Okay. And those who don't give up, their life is so miserable, so hurtful, so painful. The suffering is so much that they actually embrace the need, the help, so quote unquote help that is being offered by their various governments. Okay. When you got no food and your government tells you that there's a shelter here that gives you food, most people are gonna go to that shelter. All right. And because they don't know what's waiting for them at those shelters, they're gonna go in there willingly. All right. But remember, Esau always has to have you to willingly pledge allegiance and an oath to him, because you have to do it from your will. Like, I willingly chose to do this, right? I wasn't able to be like, you know what I'm saying? They set up a system where it makes it hard for you to resist. If the spirit is not dealing with you, you will fail. Okay? You will fail, man. But in order to be able to resist, meaning he's going to tap into your senses, your carnal senses, your eyesight, your feelings, your smell, your ears, all that shit. Okay, your taste. All right. So if he starts a man-made famine, okay, meaning they create a system of Slakia. They create a system of scarcity all across the board. That's going to result in economic collapse. Okay, economic collapse results in scarcity and famines. And then what do you have? You have a welfare system all across the board. The working class, the upper middle class, the lower class, they're all one now. Okay, and the only people that are going to be living a little bit better than them and will be considered living in a luxurious life is going to be those who are going to be, part of the plan. The military men that are part of the plan, the policemen that are part of the plan, the judges that are part of the plan. Okay, your pastors that are part of the plan, they're going to be getting their cut out of this shit. Yeah, you get this, you stay over here, you got that, we bless you with this, we're going to give you this. But you dare to fall out of line, we're going to take all that shit away from you. So you better be on your best behavior. And most people are not going to say no to that, because their real life sucks. If you ain't getting no jobs and life is hard, you got a family, you're kind of, as a man, you scared that they might threaten your life. You know what I'm saying? Or they might threaten your family. Like, yo, if you don't fall in line, we're going to hurt your family. They do shit like this, man. We're going to taint your image. They probably got some blackmail information, right? Some real damning information about you, right? And they threaten your life. Look, we could give you $500,000 to be a part of our crew, or you can go back into the world and deal with the people over there and struggle and have a difficult time. And, your job pays you like shit, but guess what? We could release this damning information and you're going to even lose your job. Now what? So your image is tainted. You ain't got no job. Your family's looking at you crazy. Now what? So if you don't want this information to come out, come join us, and it's peaceful. And most people are going to do that. You get paid to join them to do evil, so that your wicked deeds that were caught that they're using against you, You don't want it to come out, so you're gonna join them, huh? Okay, you're gonna join in. Okay, and that's what a lot of these people are gonna do. A lot of these Americans are gonna join in ultimately to end up dying anyway. Once the mission is complete, they don't need you no more. You're gonna be out of there. Okay, you're gonna be out of there. All right, but until then, you're gonna see a lot of people sell out. A lot of people about to start selling out, man. Okay. Quote, it says, as we meet today, millions are trapped in cycles of violence, hunger, and displacement. End quote. He additionally described calling on more robust global action. Okay. If a global action is the solution, then that means that whatever the problems are, it was created by the same people looking for that global action. Okay. You're talking about all this violence that's going on, hunger, displacement. Who's causing all that? See, you niggas don't want to leave nobody alone. If you were to leave people alone, you're not going to have no hunger or none of that shit. Okay? Once Esau is in power and in rulership, he destroys everything, man. It says, meanwhile, over in Moscow, President Putin expressed agreement the same day in a speech not related to the United Nations, describing that the global situation is on the brink. Quote, the situation on the international stage is increasingly deteriorating. I don't think anyone would argue with that, right? That's crazy. That's preparing for World War III. Long-standing conflicts are intensifying. Like Yahushua said, we're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. Conflicts are wars, bro. All right, just a politically correct way of saying war. Conflict, that's it. Okay? So long-standing wars are intensifying and new serious flashpoints are emerging, Putin said with a smile. In a speech to new ambassadors who had presented their credentials in the Kremlin, his first public remarks to foreign policy issues this year, Putin did not mention the United States or Trump explicitly. Quote, we hear a monologue from those who, by the right of might, consider it permissible to dictate their will, lecture others, and issue orders, end quote, Putin said. Quote, Russia is sincerely committed to the ideals of a multipolar world. Okay? We hope that recognition on this of this need will come sooner or later. Until then, Russia will continue to consistently pursue its goals, Putin stated. More junior Russian officials have over the past 5 days pointed out that it's absurdly hypocritical for the West to lecture Moscow, when Washington is going unprovoked into countries like Venezuela to remove leaders and threatening new war against Iran. Right. So everybody, like we read in Isaiah 14, is this the man that weakeneth the nations, right? Because everybody's watching this shit. Everybody's seeing what's going on because it's the time of biblical prophecy. Okay? And these are uncharted territory that we're entered into, man. Like a sitting president going into a different country, a sovereign a president's country, grab him and his wife up and bring him over to his country and tell him that you about to be charged for so and so. Like, what? That's crazy. But this is the world we're living in. And then the very same week he says, oh, we're going for Greenland next. And just that alone, he done set the whole world on fire. Okay? He done set the whole world on fire, man. But again, this is all end-time biblical prophecy. All you're going to be hearing from here on out is just war after war, rumor after war, and so on and so forth, man. Okay? And it gets worse and worse and worse because it's part of the crisis that these devils need in order to push again for their so-called New World Order. Okay? So yeah, they go, oh yeah, it's on the brink of dying, but yet they're working behind the scenes to actually revive it, so to speak. Okay? But ultimately, what did the Lord say? This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 35, and verse 1. It says, moreover, the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, and prophesy against it. And Mount Seir really is talking about the Edomites nation as a whole. But America is modern-day Mount Seir because this is where they dwell. This is where they have their money-making company / military might. Okay, their hammer that they use to instill order upon the nations, oppress the nations. It's done through America. Okay, it's done through America. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus saith the Lord power, behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. Okay? So you're seeing the hand of the Lord right now. It starts with those divisions. He works in the minds of the kings. Now they can't get on the same page. And then now it leads to, again, that division. Yahushua said what? It leads to what? Desolation. So when they can't get on the same page, one is trying to outdo the other, right? And then they all say, hey, you know what? We're going to have to, clash this out. I got my citizens hiding in bunkers. Do you have your citizens hiding in bunkers? Because we've coming in hot with the missiles. Okay? And America is not going to open up no bunkers for American citizens to go hide in. So hence you're going to be all destroyed over here on this side if you're still on American soil when the missiles start flying over here, man. Okay? We have a firm belief in Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and his promises to the point where we see it clear as day. Okay? We see it clear as day. And if we see it clear as day, that means that everybody else is seeing it clear as day. They just don't want to admit it. We went into a live lesson earlier today that the reality is here, but people are just not realizing it. A lot of people don't want to realize the reality, but it is what it is. Okay? You choosing not to see something when it's even right there in your face, that's your problem. All right, that's your problem. And that's exactly what the Lord says is going to be happening in these last days. All right? It says verse 4, it says, I will lay thy cities waste. Right? That's Malachi, the 1st chapter. And it says, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord Yahweh. Right? And that's because you're not going, this time around, once the Lord makes this place desolate, you don't get to come back to rebuild it. Nobody's going to be coming back here. For what? Right? For what? This place is going to be completely annihilated and destroyed. Done. The data centers are going to be gone. You're not going to be coming back to the data center. Oh, maybe we could revive AI to turn things back. No. All right? It's over with. It's over with, man. So, yeah, man, they got their so-called New World Order thing that they're trying to accomplish. But, hey, the Lord is making it very difficult for them by way of this truth. Okay? So expect this devil to start, throwing haymakers, man, because now he's like, yo, I have to do something. Revelation 12:12. I have to do something, and I have to do it quick. If not, I'm going to lose my power here. And the power is already lost. You don't have to worry about it. All right, it's the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 12. It says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Okay, so the window of opportunity is closing on them. So they have to make their move, and they got to make it quick, because the longer they wait, the more people are waking up, man. Okay, and it doesn't work in their favor when people are waking up. All right? So yeah, man, prophecy. Lord willing, you are edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachak, Kodash, the water Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, and until next time, Shalom.